Greetings everyone. In today's video we are going to be manually modding Fallout New Vegas. For those who have never played the game before, we're running through a little prelude right now, so you've got some idea what's going on. May want to play the game, you can get it on Steam. Anyways, modding Fallout New Vegas is similar in many respects to modding Fallout 4. However, there are some key differences we need to be aware of, which is pretty much where we're going to focus on this video. We're going to install a couple of mods, and I'm also going to try and do the Fallout New Vegas script extender to see how that works. So off we go to the races, so to speak.
Got what you were after, so pay up.
You're crying in the rain, Pally.
Guess who's waking up over here?
Time to cash out.
Will you get it over with?
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig? You've made your last delivery, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
It's become clear to me recently that there's a spike in interest in manual modding of the Fallout games on Linux. I've been getting a lot more requests, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, but yeah, I've been seeing a lot more requests for manual modding. Several months ago I finished doing a playthrough of Fallout New Vegas. Picked it up at a Steam sale where I got all the DLC thrown in with it. I thought it was a pretty good deal. I played it through straight, no mods, no console commands, nothing like that. And I advise everybody, if you're going to play Fallout, the first time, I advise you to do it straight up. Or maybe do it straight up normal, play it straight up once survival mode, whatever. But yeah, it can make for an enjoyable experience, and then you'll know what you want to mod or change on the game. Anyway, like I say, I noticed the interest in Fallout games in general, but I've noticed a spike in interest in Fallout New Vegas, and I'm assuming that's because of the second season of the Fallout TV show. It takes place in the Mojave, which is the same setting for Fallout New Vegas, and in fact, I believe the last episode I watched, I think it was Season 2, Episode 5, they actually made it to Las Vegas, or New Vegas. And it is somewhat different than what's in the game, but I don't want to give any spoilers here. So when I started looking into modding New Vegas, I noticed a lot of tutorials give what I felt was contradictory explanations, contradictory instructions, things like that. It just didn't line up. However, I do think everybody who's going to mod a game needs to be totally aware of what hardware they're running, what operating system. I think these have a huge effect on how you install mods. Well, not a huge effect, but they do have an effect, and I think that's where some of the discrepancies I see in the tutorials come from, is variations in hardware and operating systems. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. Another question I get, why manual modding? And again, fair question. I've answered it in other videos on modding Fallout 4, but the basic answer, I tried installing the various mod managers on Linux, and yes, I could get them to work, but they were never... I'm going to say they were never quite right. In some cases, they created more problems than they were supposed to solve. So manual modding just became the way I'm doing it. I have had much better luck on Linux. When I was running Windows way back when, yeah, I'd use mod managers. But it's, like I say, they haven't really panned out on Linux until somebody actually builds one specifically for Linux. I know people say Mod Organizer 2, I think it is, but yeah, I had limited success getting that to run properly. So that's enough of listening to me flap my gum. Let's get into it because that's what you're here for. And okay, just so we start on a level playing field, I think I should talk about my current setup, which is MSI Raider GE76. I've got 64 gigabytes of RAM, 3 terabytes of storage on 2 NVMe drives, i9 processor. It's one of those mobile processors. It's got the efficiency cores as well as the regular cores, so it can be a little weird there. Built-in Intel Iris graphics, and then I've got the NVIDIA discrete graphics card, or GPU. So that's my setup. I got this laptop, oh man, almost 4 years ago I bought this thing. Wow. Anyways, once the warranty expired, I dumped Windows off of it immediately. And originally I was running Arch Linux, but in line with a lot of things I do to challenge myself and test myself, and plus I had a lot of issues with Fedora way back when. I made it sort of a project to run Fedora on this laptop for at least 6 months, and so that's what I'm currently running, is Fedora 43 with the KDE 6 desktop. So again, that's just basically my specifications for what I'm using. Yours are probably different. This can have some effect. I just wanted to put that stuff out there up front just in case. Okay, to get started, the first thing I'm going to do is remove any trace of Fallout New Vegas, and that not only involves deleting it or uninstalling it via Steam, but I'm going to go into a couple of folders here and make sure they are non-existent, and if they're there, I'm going to delete them once I uninstall them. Like I say, I want to start with a clean slate. I want to get rid of any references to Fallout New Vegas and just do a fresh install, and I will be installing all the DLC with it, so that's going to be my starting point. Okay, once it's cleanly removed and we reinstall it from Steam, again, Fallout 4 New Vegas, all the DLC, we need to go check a few folders. We're going to find out there's some stuff missing, and it's not going to show up till we actually run the game. I know in other videos for other software I said run the game first, and people say, well, why do I need to do that? Well, I'm going to show you why here. We're going to go look in a few different folders here, and we're going to look for things like the Fallout INI files, which are not created till you run the game the first time, and then there's actually another specific file we need to look for in a different folder, but we'll go over the basic folders you need to know. But we go look in there. The other one, that's for the plugins.txt files in another folder, which tells you what plugins are active. This is going to be very important when we add mods, because they're also going to show up in this file. But again, haven't run it yet, so they're not in existence. So basically we're going to run Fallout New Vegas and just quickly jump into the game and then jump out again once we get through the intro stuff, and that should create all these files we need to use. Okay, the first folder is going to be our base folder. It's the Steam Apps folder. You're going to find it by going to your New Vegas entry in the library, right-clicking, Properties, and you're going to go down to Local Files and Browse. This will take you to your game folder. You go up 2 levels, you'll be in the Steam Apps folder. Now the reason we want to use the Steam Apps folder is there's a couple different folders under it we're going to use. Of course, we're going to use the Common folder, and we're going to use the Comp.dat folder, I think is what it's called. Anyway, on my installation, the Steam Apps folder is in local share within my home directory, and local is a hidden file. Then the Steam folder, and that's the Steam Apps. And if you go into the Steam Apps folder, let's look at these. It's compat data, that's what it is, compatibility data. Because you're using Proton, which is a compatibility layer. So anyway, in the compat data, you've got a bunch of numbered folders, and Fallout New Vegas is 22380, and you're going to go into that, you're going to see a PFX folder, and if you go into that, you're going to see a drive C folder, and this, for your Windows users, this is your C drive, your compatibility drive on Linux. So from here on, the folder structure should look similar to Windows users. Anyways, we deep dive on the drive C. We go to users, Steam users, documents, our game folder, Fallout New Vegas, and this is where we're going to find our INI files. But again, like I said, they're not there right now. They'll be created a little later. But when you read a mod installation instruction or descriptions and it tells you to modify an INI file, this is where you find them. Now if we back up to Steam users, we've got an app data, and then inside app data we have local, then a Fallout New Vegas folder. This is where that plugins.txt folder we talked about is going to live. This is where you're going to, this is the one that holds what mods and what DLC is installed on your game. And again, we're going to talk about that a little more because there's something interesting that happens when you use the script extender, but we'll get to that. And then, as I said, your main game folder is under Common. And again, your main game folder is under the Steam apps, Common, Fallout New Vegas, and a lot of your mod stuff's going to get installed in the data folder, but that's a little different for script extender, and we'll, like I say, we'll go into that, but that gets installed in your actual Fallout New Vegas folder and not in the data folder, but that we'll get to that when we talk about script extender. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is mod requirements, and this is another one of those fun topics. I don't know if I really mentioned it in previous videos, although it did exist, but anyway, let's go to a place like Nexus Mods and we'll look up a couple of mods and I'll explain what I mean by mod requirements. We'll sort these a little here. Weapons mod expanded, that's a good one to start out with. This one basically has no requirements. You can just install it straight up. It's the simplest, easiest method, and we'll actually do a mod like that, but I mean that's just an example. You just copy the files over and you activate it and it works. Now if we look at the NMC's texture pack, this is also doesn't really have any prerequisites or requirements, but what it does have is multiple files, and they're fairly large files, and they take a while to download unless you've got one of them Nexus Mod premium membership things. Yeah, but I mean it's the next level of complexity of mods, and then you got one that involves multiple files you need to download. Now if you want to look at a mod like Nevada Skies Weather Effects, this one actually has some prerequisites. If you go down and you look at the requirements for the mod, you could read out what they are. And it's basically got several what they call on-site requirements, and that's other mods that you can download from Nexus Mods, and it's got an off-site requirement which is not part of Nexus Mods, and that's the script extender, which we're going to talk about later. But if we actually go to some of these other mods that are required for this mod, and you look at their requirements, and you find out, hey, they've got requirements also. Anybody who's been on Linux for a while will understand this. This is something that Linux users like to refer to as dependency hell. And you may have to track back quite a ways depending on the mods you want to install to find stuff that you can meet all the dependencies and get the mod to actually work, and you may be installing a lot more than you intended to. Okay, let's jump right in here with Tidier Prospect Saloon mod. I'm choosing this mod because I'm starting a new playthrough, and this mod is immediately obvious early on because it's one of the first couple of buildings you're going to run into when you start a new playthrough, so that's one of the reasons I'm picking this mod. We'll go ahead and run up to the Prospect Saloon. We can see what it looks like. We've got a couple of motorcycles, one of them laying down, some various other stuff around. Yeah, just remember what this picture looks like, and we'll come back to it. So we'll jump out of New Vegas and we will open the archive folder, and we can see this mod has a single ESP file, a Bethesda type archive. We'll talk about loose files. Well, talk about it now. Loose file. Some mods have loose files, and actually I think, well, we'll look. Our next mod is going to have loose files. So we'll talk about it then. But we just copy. I copy this. I extract it from the archive to a staging folder, and the reason I do this is if I ever have to reinstall New Vegas, I can just drag and drop everything in my staging folder into the data folder in New Vegas rather than extracting and installing the mods one at a time. It just, for me, it's a time saver, and if you played a lot of Bethesda games, at some point you will have to reinstall. You just know it. But anyway, once we reinstall it, we're going to restart the game, and when we get up to the launcher screen, you're going to notice an entry called Data Files. We're going to click on that, and if you look at Data Files, you're going to see a list of all your DLC, and you're also going to see our Tidier Prospect Saloon mod is there too, but it's unchecked, and we're going to check it, which will activate it in the game. You also notice at the bottom a checkbox for loose files. There's certain mods there are a few. I know one that's on the tip of my tongue. There's something about gold bars, and one of the DLCs that is strictly loose files, so you need to check this box to get them to load. Anything that has its own separate archive, like the ESP or ESM file, you're probably not going to have to worry about that. Anyway, we check it here, we say okay, and then we can launch the game. And we jump right back in, and we can immediately look around and see, okay, well, now we've got the motorcycles, but they're all neatly parked. We've got some matting in front of the door. There's a couple of tables now. So, you know, things have just been tidied up and cleaned up a little bit. So I know it's not much of a mod, but like I say, this is one you can see early on in the game that it's installed and that it's working correctly. Okay, let's do another mod. This one's called the Boomstick. It's a nod to Ash from Evil Dead, the character played by Bruce Campbell, the shotgun he used there. This one is also an early game mod. It shows up at the gas station. There's a certain quest you're going to pick up which will cause you to go to the gas station. Again, not going to try and do any spoilers here, so we'll probably leap over that stuff. But this mod also has a archive file, and it has data and texture, or a mesh and textures folder with it that you're going to copy it all over. One of the things I pointed out in some of the Fallout 4 modding videos on Linux, case is important, and if you start installing enough mods that have loose files, at some point you're going to find textures spelled with a capital T and textures spelled with a small t. You need to combine those directories. Windows, when it comes to directory names, doesn't really care about capitalization. Most Linux file systems do care, so if you run into that, and I go over it in some of the Fallout 4 videos, you need to resolve that by putting all the files in one name, either textures with a small t or textures with a large T. I usually find for these loose files I capitalize the first letter and the rest are small letters, and that seems to work very well for me. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and extract these to our staging folder, then copy them over to our data folder within our New Vegas game folder. And then we're going to start the game. We're going to go back to data files, and we're going to activate this mod. I mean, you can check the loose mods again, but I think the archive file will load them on its own. But then we can start the game. We can jump in, and when we go to the gas station for this particular quest up on the hill there, we go in and we can find this gun sitting on the back shelf here. We can just go pick it up. Looking at the specs, it's got some pretty decent specs. It does almost twice as much damage as my sturdy caravan shotgun, except it takes 12 gauge rounds, not 20 gauge rounds. So now I just got to find some 12 gauge rounds so I can use this thing. Anyway, that's another mod. This one actually had loose files with it, but you know, like I say, archive file will probably load them, but if you can check the loose files just to make sure. It doesn't, so far I found it doesn't hurt anything. All right, now for the fun one, the Fallout New Vegas script extender. You can download this from their website. It's likely to have several different names. You can actually download it from Nixus Mods, which is kind of weird, but I suggest getting it directly from their website, and that being the one you use, it'll be the latest, greatest version. Not that I expect they're going to be revamping New Vegas, but you never know. I mean, I heard they're going to revamp Fallout 3. I haven't seen anything yet, but I've heard it. Anyway, you're going to get the archive, and we're going to extract this. It's going to actually come out in its own folder in our mod folder. We want to leave it in its own folder because it's got a slightly different install process. So this is actually going to drag everything from the script extender folder over into the Fallout New Vegas folder. You'll notice it has a data folder within its archive that's going to copy over to the data folder in the Fallout New Vegas directory, but we're going to copy it all over. You're going to want to write into the data directory, and that's it for getting it in place. Now the fun part is getting it to work. So we're going to find the Fallout New Vegas launcher. This is the program that Steam runs. This is the easiest way I found to get it to work and the quickest. I'm still playing around with a few other alternatives, including writing a script, but that's sort of complicated. And if I get that ironed out, I may do a video just on that later. But the fastest way is you find out your Fallout New Vegas launcher. It'll be a launcher.exe. You're going to rename it, and after exe, you're going to add a .bak. And you're going to save this. You're going to get a warning about changing the file type. Don't worry, we want to change the file type. Once that's done, you're going to go down and find the New Vegas script extender launcher, and you're going to rename that the same name that the Fallout New Vegas launcher was named. In fact, you can just copy the name from there with the exception of the .back and paste it in for a new name for the launcher that comes with the script extender. What this will do is force Steam to launch the script extender in the correct environment, so you won't get a whole bunch of errors and other stuff, because I tried several different ways of running it straight, running it from the command line. They get a little complex. This is the easiest way to do it, because like I say, you just click on play in Steam and it runs. We'll go ahead and fire it up, and what you're going to notice when it loads up is that the launcher never appears. It goes right into the game itself. So if we continue and we get into the game and we hit the little tilde cent, which is in the upper left corner of American style keyboards, might be elsewhere on other keyboards, but that's where it is on American keyboards. This opens the console, and you should see FONVSE in the console, which tells you it was launched from script extender. And if you want, you could do the get FONVSE version, and it'll give you the version. This just shows that it's actually working and running, and that is the easiest way to get script extender working. The only downside is, you remember we did the data files thing in the launcher? Well, if we're not launching the launcher, we can't add additional mods or loose files or anything like that. So yes, we need a workaround, and that's what's coming next. All right, first workaround, we got to go to the compat data PFX 22380 PFX drive C users, Steam users, app data locale Fallout New Vegas folder, and we're going to find something called plugins.txt. If you open this, now that we've added a few mods, you'll not only see the DLC, but you'll see the mods we added there. This is what gets updated when you run through the launcher and you hit that data files. So if we were to uncheck something, it'd be removed from this file. We check something is added. Well, I know it tells you not to modify this file, but if we're not using the launcher, we can just drop in the name of the specific mod archive that we run, the ESP or the ESM file, into this file and save it, and the mod will load. I haven't done any experimenting with load order in this particular file, so I don't know if moving things around, if you have problems, will solve it. That's something I'll have to try a little later when I get a little further into the game and get some more mods set up. But this is how you can actually load a mod without the launcher, is going to the plugins file and just adding it. Okay. Okay, next thing is the loose files. We lost that little loose file checkbox. So for this, we're going to have to go to the fallout.ini file, which again is in the Steam apps, compat data 22380, PFX driver, drive C, users, Steam users, documents, game folder, Fallout New Vegas, fallout.ini, and we're going to have to go down and find the archives section. Oh, interesting thing, I poked around, and it seems like the only difference between the Fallout New Vegas.ini and the Fallout Prefs, well, it's not even Fallout New Vegas, it's Fallout ini, but anyways, the Prefs version is a couple of extra line feeds. I went through them line by line. They seem pretty much the same at this point. Interesting. I had a problem with the fallout.ini file, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. Anyway, you go down to the archive section, you should find a line that says something like B invalidate older files equals 1. That should already be set. If it's anything other than 1, or if it's not there, you need to add it and set it to 1. But if you did a clean install, it should already be there. That's fine. Go out to the end of the 1, hit the return to create a new blank line, and we're going to add something else. And this one's going to be an S resource data dirs final equals, and we're not going to leave it equal to anything. Now, I haven't actually proved this yet. It doesn't hurt anything, but these are supposed to force automatic loading of any loose files. Again, I haven't got to a point where I can say for sure. I've got one mod I am going to install, but it's going to be further through my playthrough, and it'll be, like I said, I'm going to do, if I run into these issues or resolve these issues, I'll do an update to this video. But anyway, when you try and save this file, if your system's similar to mine, you're going to be told you can't save it. And this is what seems kind of silly to me. So I basically backed out and highlighted the file and looked at the permissions, and I, as the owner of the file, had read-only permissions, whereas on the, if you look at the prefs one, you have read-write permissions. So I gave myself read-write permissions for the fallout.ini file, and I made those updates again, and I saved the file. And I could say it didn't really seem to hurt anything, but when I get further through the playthrough, I'll know if it actually loads loose files, because I did install a mod that's, I guess it's a gold bricks, sparkly gold bricks or gold bars mod, and it's strictly loose files. So we'll see when I get to the well, it's part of the deal. It depends on Dead Man's DLC, and when I get to that, we'll see if this actually loads those. I'm hoping it does. But that's what I found from several tutorials, is how you can force it. Anyway, those are the two adjustments you need to make if you're using a script extender. Okay, looks like we're at the end of another video. I do want to say that modding can present unique challenges and difficulties. Mod at your own risk. It's not approved basically by Bethesda. They give you the option to do it, but like I say, do it at your own risk. So initially, modding Fallout New Vegas may seem easy, and for a lot of mods it actually is pretty easy, and I again wanted to point out that some mods have requirements, dependencies if you will, and you need to check up on those. I highly recommend reading the entire description page of any mods you're going to install, especially the requirements that you might need. And again, like I say, we get to something called dependency hell, where it requires another mod that requires another mod that requires another mod. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad, but just be aware of that possibility. So having said all that, modding can definitely enhance the game environment. It did in Fallout 4. I'm still playing around with things in Fallout New Vegas, seeing how they affect the environment and the playthrough. So yeah, like I say, I do recommend you go through an entire game straight before playing with mods. That way you'll know what you want to mod and what you want to change. Plus you understand the game better the second time around. So there's nothing really hard about manually modding New Vegas on Linux. It's just, you got to take your time, you got to do your research, and again, I highly recommend using a mod staging folder, because you can unzip and unarchive all the mods to that folder, and if you ever have to reinstall the game, you can just drop the contents of that folder back into the data directory, and you're got all your mods. Well, then you got to use the data files to reactivate all your mods. But yeah, staging folder, and I use the same thing with Fallout 4, definitely makes it easier when you do reinstall the game. So manual modding is not for everybody, but it's worth giving it a try. Like I say, it's not that hard once you get into it. I mean, it looks a little complicated from the outside, but like I say, once you do it a few times, you'll be breezing through it like you will not believe. Anyway, again, that's it for this video. So as usual, please like, comment, subscribe. I guess I should say something about notification bells. I never say that, but I guess I should. Anyway, next video, I'm going to be jumping back to my series on Proxmox virtual machines, or LXC containers. I'll be setting up a Nextcloud virtual machine in my next video. And actually, with the changes to Nextcloud, it's been like years since I've done that. That might be a little more complicated than I thought, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So we'll see you next time. Till then, stay safe, have fun.